Hello and welcome to this episode of Dropping Pebbles in the Pond. And tech willing, we're live on a variety of different platforms. So whether you're watching on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, and whether you're watching live or watching on replay on the recording, you're very welcome to Dropping Pebbles in the Pond. As usual, I invite you to grab a brew or your favourite tipple. I just happen to have, still in my healthy mode, some electrolyte-laden water here. And maybe it'd be a good idea to have a notebook and something to write with, obviously, because not only do I have a few questions for you to reflect on and share your thoughts on, but I also have a very special guest joining me a little later on. So I imagine that you'll want to make some notes. I know I too will be making notes, even though it's somebody I know pretty well. So settle in, make yourself comfortable for the next 45 minutes or so. Now, just so that you know, it is easier for us to see your comments in real time, and therefore we can interact with you kind of more naturally if you're watching on YouTube. So if you are watching somewhere else, now might be a good time just to pop over there so that you can comment, we can see your comments, and so that we can respond to your comments and questions, because we are going to be asking you a few things. As you know, I'm always interested to know where you're joining from, so do let us know which part of the world you're currently in. And my dear friend Mary Alice always says where your feet are currently hitting the ground. And mine are currently hitting the ground in the southeast of England, in Kent, where it's been a glorious sunny day today. I think these next 5 days are our summer. So kind of got the linen on and making the most of it, actually. So love to know where you're joining from, and let's see how many continents we can actually have guests from or viewers from today. As ever, I'm being supported, or more appropriately actually held together by behind the scenes by my brilliant team, and they'll share the comments and let me know when there's a question that I need to respond to, because I can only manage one or two things at once. I can't manage to engage with you here and look at where the questions are. So they're holding me together, holding me up and making sure everything works. So this particular episode is called From Chaos to Consistency. And I know, especially if you look at what's gone on in today's markets around the world, there's quite a lot of chaos going on at the moment. And there are so many places that I could start to think about if I look back to previous podcast episodes, for instance, like overthinking that sometimes swamps our introverted brains, or the frustrations that emerge when we have one of those Groundhog Day experiences. And maybe even thinking about the chaos when we choose gratitude, if I'm going to pinch Melody Beattie's phrase for a moment, when we turn what we have into enough and more, it turns denial into acceptance and chaos into order, confusion into clarity. And it makes sense of our past, brings peace for today, and creates a vision for tomorrow. And certainly I'd rather have that, some consistency, some peace, some calm, than I would the chaos. So whenever I'm thinking about creating consistency, calm, and even capacity, actually, out of the carnage that is chaos, there's only ever one person I think about. And that one person is Marianne Page. She has a reputation for making business simple, and works with business owners around the globe, actually, to help them build run a high performing, scalable operation. And she's going to talk about that today, but I'm going to keep you in suspense a little bit longer, because we do have some comments and some people saying where they're joining us from. So let's have those on the screen now, so that hi Tech Mother, it's lovely that you're with us. A midnight hot summer. Yeah, I can imagine how it is there for you. So thank you for being up Melbourne and raining, August. That really doesn't sound the ticket. Hey, Chris from the Big Apple, you're very welcome too. Lovely to have you here. Guess who? Thank you, Brad. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for joining under your particular name so that I don't have to do the tongue twister. And Sebastian, I am the chaos. I am the consistency. I am the resilience. Good Lord, all of it. Well, thank you for being here with us. So I've said that Marianne is the person I think about immediately when I think about systems, and when I think about taking things that are potentially complex and turning them into something that we can get our hands around and manage really simply. And of course, she's going to talk about that today. But hello, Eileen. Thank you for joining us. But I also want us to explore the territory of how we introverts might turn that chaos into consistency in our own lives, because not everyone who's joining us is going to be running their own business, be it a small or a $300 million operation like Marianne was just describing. So how can we apply some of these principles in our own life? Now, Marianne and I first met in April 2016. Do you realize, Marianne, 9 years this month that we first met? And we met aboard the Orient Express. We boarded in London, going through to Paris. And that sounds pretty fancy, doesn't it? Well, it was. And it was the beginning of a really solid relationship, because as you'll find out, Marianne is definitely a no-nonsense kind of person. She's the author of 3 best-selling books, and I know I'm going to enjoy our conversation because I know how much value Marianne can add in just a short amount of time. So she's perfect for this episode of Dropping Pebbles in the Pond. So without further ado, I'd love you all to join me, please, in welcoming Marianne Page. Yay!
Hey, I've never been called perfect before, so that's a first for me this evening. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. And obviously, I've given a brief intro, but share a little about you before we dive into the big questions of the evening, Marianne.
Yeah, well, actually, just thinking about the whole being an introvert, I'm one of 6. My parents had 6 daughters, no sons, and I was the 5th. So I learned very quickly how to shout quite loud, and that's possibly been my modus operandi for most of my life, I would say. Although I learned that in terms of introversion, I do actually get my energy from being on my own. I love being on my own, creating, writing, hence the 3 books. But I spent, crikey, most of my years with McDonald's, who obviously, big corporate organization. To be honest, actually, for me, when I started and for the first 15 years, it was like one big family. It was lovely. But then it just became bigger and bigger and bigger. And but I learned so much from that organization about what works and what doesn't work, and how important teams are to achieving anything. And also, I'm a team player myself anyway. I've played a lot of hockey in my life. So, I really get the value of teams and get the value of different types of people in a team. That it cannot all be, one style. So, so I learned an awful lot in McDonald's. Obviously, I learned a lot about systems, even though I didn't recognize that I was learning about systems. It was only when I left that somebody said, "Why aren't you talking about system? That's what McDonald's are all about." Because obviously at McDonald's, it was just the way things got done. Everything was, So and now, as you said in your lovely introduction, thank you. I now have my own sort of global small business, helping business owners and their teams to be consistent, to achieve that consistency that gives all of them freedom. Actually, makes life easy for everybody, the business owner, the teams, the managers, and their customers. Systems just make everybody's life easier.
And although I hadn't planned to ask this, I feel like I'm drawn to ask it now. So is there an element of the whole systems approach that kind of scares people, Marianne? Because I've had people almost rail, oh, okay, yeah, it feels like I'm going to get the right response to this.
Absolutely, 100%. There's so much about, for a start, people talk about systemizing your business, and it just sounds overwhelming. It sounds like a massive task. And then they start talking about the word process. And even though my first book was called Process to Profit, and actually I love what process does, I hate the word because it's just such a blocking word. You say it and you see the shutters come down in people's eyes, whether it's team members or business owners, and it's a real block. And when I think back to my McDonald's time, the fact that we didn't talk about process, we didn't talk about systems, we didn't talk about Lean Six Sigma, we just talked about the McDonald's way. And that's what I encourage. I just encourage people to think that way. Say, what is the best way to do this task? What is the most simple, logical, and repeatable way to do this task? Right, let's make that our way of doing it. Let's make that the way that everybody follows, that everybody is trained in. And, there is only one way to cook French fries. Nobody comes in from the outside and goes, oh, my granny cooks a mean French fry. Let me show you how we do it, or how she does it. No, it's like, right, come in, let me show you the McDonald's way. Okay, actually, no, that's not quite how we do it. We do it like this. And I think when you take away the language of systems, it becomes so much more straightforward, so much easier, because it's just task by task. The other place to start, of course, is routines. And this is the same whether you are in a business or at home. Having routines, having habits that you just follow every day, and you do them the same way every day. And a lot of solo businesses, they say, well, you can't really help us because you're all about teams. And mostly I am. But I know when I was starting out on my own, there would be tasks that I only did once a quarter, or worse still, once a year. And every time I would go, oh God, how did I do that? And I'd have to go back and Google. It just took forever. Whereas if I had just captured my task on a little how-to video, I'd just be able to go click. Oh yes, I remember it now. And it's just when you sort of position it that way, people get it. They're not afraid of it. And the other thing as well, the big thing, is that the business owner always thinks that they have to be the one that systemizes a business. They have to be the one that decides how everything gets done. But I rarely work with a business owner that is actually just starting out and building a team. I'm usually working with people who've already got a team, people who are already doing the task, people who are already doing the task really well. So you get them to capture it, you get them to capture the how-to, and then you just go, actually, do you think that's the most simple way to do it? And then so you get them involved, you get them engaged. And then, before you know it, you've got a training system that everybody's able to follow.
Brilliant. And you've just reminded me of why I so warmed to you and your approach, Marianne, because you cut the corporate bollocks. So we don't actually have to have any of that process and systemized stuff. It's how do we do things around here?
Yeah, I hate corporate bollocks. I have to say, in full disclosure, when I left corporate, I went into small business and talked bollocks for at least 12 months till a number of business owners just batted it out of me, because it's hard. I mean, I was in corporate for 27 years. It's hard to come out and learn the language of small business. It is, they don't want any of that, as you say, as you so
eloquently put it.
Eloquently, that's the word I was groping for. Eloquently put it.
Yeah, brilliant. Yes. Yeah. So Chris is agreeing. We've all done that because of the culture is full of it. And I think I think the team that are here certainly supporting me will really relate to that kind of that sense of, and I know it's frowned on a lot, actually, your team being like a family, because one of the things they talk about within this organization is teamily, because actually when you work closely with people, you do build those kind of relationships and you do care for people in a really kind of strong way. And I know it's frowned on in quite a lot of organizations, but it feels somewhat harsh not to have that, to think of them in the same and give them the same amount of respect as you would a family member in some way.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny you say that, because I've just been having this conversation, because I'm working with a client who's just hired somebody in from corporate. And so I've been having a conversation about, how are you getting on? And, I told somebody to do something and they didn't do it, and they question me. It's like, okay. So there's two things on that. One is, in corporate, and actually, unfortunately, a lot in small business, people talk about staff, and staff has the same impact on me as the word process. It's like staff is such a, it's like human resources. I've always hated that expression, but staff is like a number. It's me and it's my staff, staff. And I really love helping a business build a culture where it's we and us, and where it's not, me and them is parent child.
Yeah.
And then you get team members who start acting like children and won't do anything unless they are told. And then you get the boss who's going, why can't they show some initiative? It's because they're waiting for you to tell them. Whereas when you've got we and us, you've got adult to adult relationships. And it's more honest, it's more open, it's more, we are doing this together. Yes, I happen to be the leader, and ultimately I will make the final decision. Somebody has to be the leader. But it's adult to adult, and you appreciate people for who they are. You help them to fulfill their potential, whatever that might be. And we have to recognize sometimes that potential is way beyond our business. It's somewhere they want to start a band or whatever. But it's that for me that really starts building a great team, where you do get that consistency, where you do get to the point where everybody knows their role. They do it day to day, they take ownership for it, and they do it consistently well. It has to be we and us.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen a few comments, so I'll ask for them to come back in a minute as well. But as you were talking about staff, the phrase that came to me, and I heard it from one of my delegates this week, was they were talking about their subordinates. And it's like, I know.
Oh, horrible.
Exactly. Because as you say, I might be the manager, I might be the boss, I might be the one who actually has to do some of the tough stuff, make some of the, tough decisions.
Absolutely.
But I'm no better than you. I just have different responsibilities. So this whole subordinate thing, really doesn't work for me. Can we have those comments back again? Because I think there were a couple in there that were worth just touching on. We are teamily. Don't care about the frowns. Brilliant. Yeah, Brad's saying staff to me is owned labor, despise it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Very common in the US and India to use subordinates. Oh, interesting. As a labor rights advocate, I've fought for that. It's really not helpful, is it?
No. So it is really common. It is really common. Most of the businesses I go into work with start calling people staff.
Not helpful. So let's think about, but because as I say, not everyone who listens to this is going to be a business owner or have their own business, etc. But many of them are going to be managers in a bigger organization. So how can we start thinking about what constitutes a high performing and engaged team, even for what they're managing within a larger outfit, for instance?
Yeah. Well, I think for me, the first thing to recognize is that a really great team, a high performing team, has shared values. They may have different styles. They may be, introverts, extroverts, and all shades in between.
Yeah.
But ultimately, they share the same values. They have the same passions about the same things. There are there are lines that they won't cross. They celebrate the same things. So there's that sort of sharing of those values. Then there is the performance. There is the consistent training, so that everybody does understand their role. Everybody, crikey, we've all been trained by somebody who's gone, right, just do this, and this. Okay, got it. I'm off to do something way more important than train you so that you get confidence in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And if we had longer, I'd tell you the story of me learning to sail with Winston in Antigua. But needless to say, he dived off the boat and left me way out in the bay. Yeah, anyway, that's the sort of training that sends shivers down my spine, and not in a good way. So getting people to understand exactly what their role is, and not saying, oh, it's just common sense. Why can't they get it? Everybody knows this. It's common sense. No, train them in your way of doing things that you've worked out because you've discovered the most simple, logical, repeatable way of doing it. Train them and then give them feedback. And the sort of hiring the right people and not accepting anybody, not settling for anybody that doesn't share your values is step number one. Giving them consistently good training and investing in that is step number two. And then giving them feedback, and not just the day-to-day feedback where it's constructive, appreciative, not walking past anything that's not up to standard. But also giving people their time in the sun, one-to-one, quarterly, sit down. Yes, it's an investment, but it's so worthwhile, because what usually happens is I'm sure you'll have heard of the choir, the crypt, and the congregation. And the choir get loads of attention because they're superstars, and the crypt get loads of attention because they're awful. And then the congregation, who come to work day after day, do a great job, don't get any attention, don't get any recognition, don't get any, you're doing a great job. I think you can do more, though. I think you can. I think I want to challenge you to do this, because the other there's two phrases. One is performance management has sadly become synonymous with giving somebody a good kicking. It's all about discipline. People go into performance management, whereas everything I ever learned about performance management was it was an opportunity to inspire and motivate somebody to improve their performance. That's why you do it. So giving people that time in the sun is so important. The other thing, though, is the words training and development are often almost used as one word. Training and development, you're like, it's one word, and they're two completely different things. One is training people to do their job really well, and the other is developing them to fulfill their potential, to be the best they can possibly be, to challenge them, to push them out of their comfort zone. I joined McDonald's as the most naive 21-year-old you are ever likely to meet. And within 12 months, I was running £1 million restaurant with a team of 50 and supported by two 18-year-old managers. Could I have done that without being trained and developed? Absolutely not. And then they molded me into 4 other different positions: customer services, facilities manager, fleet manager. I mean, I didn't know anything about those things when I joined the business. So I had to be trained to do the job, and then developed as an individual to give me confidence and self-belief, and that just that ability to go, yeah, I can do this. I can take this on. And I think a lot of the time we just don't, as managers at every level, team leaders, supervisors, all the way up to senior managers, business owners, we don't invest enough time in training and developing our people. We just don't, and giving them feedback, which is part of development. We just don't do it.
Guy, you're talking, as you know, you're talking my language absolutely here. And there's a phrase you've used that I'm going to remember forever, I think, is that giving people their moment, or their time in the sun, their moment in the sun. Because you're right, performance management is synonymous with giving them a kicking. And when it comes to training and development, because I moved into this field when I was still in BT back in 1987, and it was known as training then, because it was still actually a relatively immature kind of profession, really. And so we were the training, we were trainers. And then all of a sudden we realized that actually you're right, there's more to this. There's training people to do things right, to do the right things. And I joined that whole world around the time of total quality management.
Oh,
so that was my,
yes. We did total quality management as well.
Exactly. But then there's the whole thing about, you're right. How do we help people be the best version of themselves, reach their potential, all of that sort of stuff. So you're really talking my language there.
Absolutely.
And I just want to then think about if that's what we can do in businesses large and small, how can we actually apply some of those principles just to our own lives, our own maybe personal, professional life, but also to our personal life. So how can we apply some of that same thinking and some of the same, the way we do things around here? How can we apply that?
Well, there's a phrase that came to me recently that I really believe in, and that is that trust and loyalty are built on the foundations of consistency. And that absolutely applies to relationships of all kinds, business, family, friendship. Trust and loyalty are built on the foundations of consistency. Doing what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it, and to the standard expected in a work context, and also sometimes in a family or friends context. But it is that consistency. It's being, not being that person who everybody's waiting to see how you show up to decide whether they're going to have a good day or a bad day. And we all, we've all met those people. We all know them. The mood hoovers who can just walk into a room and just suck out all the energy,
every bit of joy. Actually, they suck out
every bit of joy. So I do think that whole being consistent, and in terms of achieving consistency, other than doing what you say you're going to do, it again for me it comes back to those routines and habits. And making time. People talk about date night with your other half. Making time for those sorts of things. Being consistent in that. It's not somebody told me we should have date night, so let's have date night. Never to be heard of again for the next months. It's being consistent, making the small amount of effort that is going to have big results in the end. And I think that a lot with I used to be part of this group where the main guy would get up and say, if you want a £1 million business, then you need to recognize that your family need to come secondary until you've achieved that. And I say to my family, you're going to get my full attention for 2 weeks every year, but outside of that, my business comes first. And I left the group.
Yes, as I would have done.
But I recognize a lot of that in business owners that I work with, and sometimes how they expect their employees to be. And I do think that the new generation coming through are way less inclined to put work before life, and good on them. I take my hat off to them, because the baby boomer and Gen, I'm terrible on my generations, but I think Gen X came next, didn't it? The culture was stay late, work hard, and your rewards will come. And we only have one life. We only have one life, and it's working out what's important to us, and then consistently going after what's important to us, consistently being focused on what it's going to take for you to be the best version of yourself. I recognize that probably for the last 5 years I was with McDonald's, I didn't recognize myself at all. And it actually took me a number of years working on my own to work through that and find myself again.
Mhm.
I just, and I came out into my own business, and then I'm thinking, oh, they seem to be doing well. I need to be more like them. They seem to do it. It was like I was
Yes.
just, I was chaotic because I was constantly trying to be somebody else.
Yeah.
And as soon as I started being me, everything just started to flow, and it was such a release. And yeah, it just felt really good to just, you can't be anybody, I can't remember who said, be yourself, everybody else is taken. But I do think that, yeah, the word authentic gets overused, and
Yeah.
but it be yourself.
Yeah.
And one thing that one of the many things I learned from you was around that ability to recognize when you need to just go away and be by yourself and
Yeah.
recharge and get your energy back, and figure out what you really want,
Yeah.
not what everybody else, all the loud voices are telling you should have,
You
or you need.
should be doing. Yeah.
Should, could,
Yeah. Shitty shoulds. Yeah.
yeah.
Brad's saying we have to make sure we don't conflate consistency with not being allowed to be creative. Yes, many managers make a mess of that. Absolutely, absolutely agree.
Yeah.
And because there's a certain rigidity, isn't there, to what some people think consistency is, and it isn't about being constrained in some way, but
No.
there's a predictability about things,
Yeah.
so that we know how things.
It's actually a release, because you get the foundation of systems for all of the basic stuff that just needs to be done. I've worked. I have the myth of creativity, systems stifling creativity, thrown at me a lot. But then when I work with creative businesses, you discover, you agree that there are loads of tasks that are completely uncreative, non-creative, that need to be done in a systematic way to free the team to be creative, to free up their time to be creative. Exactly the same with business owners. They get sucked into the grind of the day-to-day, and they aren't free to grow the business and to spot opportunities. They're like hamsters on a wheel instead of meerkats, looking for opportunities and issues that are coming their way.
There's another couple that have come up around that consistency. I think I saw one from the consistency isn't about control, but reliability and dependability.
Absolutely.
And both of those things are essential for trust, aren't they? If we go back to the base to trust equation, we have to make sure we don't conflate consistency with not. Many managers make a mess of that. And I think there was one from comes from both sides, otherwise it isn't consistency at all. And for me, again, that's like trust. So trust only exists if both parties trust each other. If I trust you but you don't trust me, there is no trust. So it has to go both ways.
Trust and respect. Absolutely.
So again, I hadn't kind of thought to say this, but because you're a prolific author, I think it's okay to say that now, Marianne. Do you have a consistency about how you write and when you write?
No.
Interesting.
No, in a word, I write when the muse hits me. No, I'm in the middle of writing a book at the minute, and it's been a really interesting exercise, because my very good friend Chat has actually been helping me, not writing it for me, but really, we've been having a discourse in terms of, these are my ideas. What do you think?
Yeah.
And I'm loving what Chat's coming back with, and I think it's making. Everybody will be the judge of whether it's making my writing richer, but I do feel that it is. I feel that it's I'm
interesting.
I'm really enjoying it. But the early ones were really about, just, to be honest, the first book was just a download of everything that I thought I ever knew about systems, and it was just like, and it's crikey, it started my business off, and I'm forever grateful to it. But my thinking just keeps evolving. I keep discovering I keep discovering more and more. So the second book was more of an evolved. Well, actually, the big things that made McDonald's successful were planning, people, process, and performance. What did that look like? How can that be translated into a small business? So and simple, logical, repeatable just struck me as exactly what it's all about. That's when I talk about a system. All I'm talking about is a simple, logical, and repeatable way of doing something. We don't need to have standard operating procedures or protocols or processes. It's just a simple, logical, repeatable way of doing something, and a how-to video, not guide, video. Stop documenting your processes and capture them on a video. Anyway, so important. It's so much more accessible. And then you mentioned about a lot of people on the call will be managers within businesses. What I discovered, particularly in the small successful businesses, not startups, but small successful businesses who are doing really well, they had the typical manager who'd been plucked out of something that they did really well, and here, be a manager. And if you're lucky, we'll give you a week's course. If you're unlucky, it'll be a one-day course, and maybe it'll be done online. And that was it in terms of development. They've never had any. And we all know that a manager can make or break a team. And some people are naturally good at it, but there will always be the budgie managers who want to be everybody's friend. There'll be the seagull managers who come in and hit everybody and then fly off. And then there'll be, the eagles who are natural born leaders and lead their team forward, but they are few and far between because there are things that you need to, this, I'm really pushing through an open door here with you, but there are things that managers need to master. They need to have strategies for giving feedback. They need to know how to give non-confrontational feedback, and that actually there is a way to do it without it being criticism. And simple strategies that every manager needs to learn. When I was at McDonald's, there was like 5 levels of manager training and development. 5 levels of it, and I barely scratched the surface with our Mission to Manage program, but it's 6 months of support, and there's. I just feel for the managers who are so much is expected of them, and they've just never been shown how to be firm, fair, and friendly, how to be a consistent manager. So they go from being really passive and letting everything go to be really aggressive. Very little in between.
I think there was a comment came up from August then maybe about managers. So managers are better for objects, and people we should have either leaders or guide. Well, and I think actually I think Marianne might be on the same page as me here. There's quite a difference between a leader, a manager, and a guide. And I think we need to know when to wear which particular hat. But actually, the successful people do all of that, but they do the right thing at the right time.
Absolutely, 100%. They're a coach, they're a mentor, they're a guide,
counselor occasionally.
Exactly.
So if there was a quick win that you could share with the audience that would help us as introverts build trust with our key stakeholders in this kind of creating consistency, what would that quick win be, Marianne?
That's a really challenging question for me, because it really is about, for me, the quick win is doing what you say you're going to do, showing up as yourself every single day. Showing up as the best version of yourself every single day. Taking that. I don't know whether you've had an argument with your other half, or your cat's died, or whatever. Just taking that pause before you go on your first work call, or actually the other way around as well. If you've had a really bad day at work,
don't take it home.
Don't take it home. Pausing outside your house before you going, I'm just leaving that. I'm just going to go in and I'm going to be the best version of myself. And I recognize that it's so easy to say, but when you're really riled up, it's hard to do. But that's the one thing that I would say as a one of the quicker wins. It's just be yourself. Just be really true to yourself and the best version of yourself.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I remember I left BT, it sounds like in a similar state to how you left McDonald's, in terms of I felt like I'd sold my soul. I was in danger of compromising my values, and I knew that's not what I didn't want to do. So I knew it was time for me to get out. And as we were leading into that time, when I'd get home, Tony and I would have a shorthand way of saying, what kind of day have you had? And the shorthand was, I'd walk in the door, because I was always last in, walk in the door, and he'd say, cup of tea or something stronger. and that was our shorthand for, have you had a good day, or, you know, a G&T day. And I remember this one time saying to him, sit down. Oh, I said, I'll have a large one. Sit down, shut up and listen. And that's not me at all. But what I knew I had was the safety within our relationship, that when I needed to, I wasn't taking it out on him. I was kind of sharing what was going on so that we could then move on, as it were. Yeah. Because what I also don't think is healthy necessarily is the whole kind of toxic positivity thing, in terms of, no, everything's fine, don't worry, because those that know us and love us will know that we're,
absolutely,
you know, that we're bullshitting. So yeah,
absolutely.
Well, I think it's probably time for today's pebble, and it's quite an interesting pebble. I've been polishing this one a little bit today, because I think it's time for us to drop today's pebble. And my pebble today is that whilst we may be introverts, I don't think we need to be consumed by the chaos that surrounds us. And let's face it, it's surrounding us in waves right now, nor do we need to contribute to it. Because what we can do is we can make different choices, but I guess we need to know why it's worth making those choices, the kind of the what's in it for us bit. So I know what's in it for me to move from chaos to consistency, and what's in it from me is peace of mind. So Marianne, I'd love to hear what you think of that pebble, and what would be in it for you in terms of making a different choice so that you're moving from chaos to consistency.
Yeah, I can't give it as one word, because for me there are so many benefits of it. There really are, you know, more trusted relationships, you know, definitely more trusted relationships, freedom, an easier life, more fun, right, because there's so much just happens as a matter of course. So therefore there's more room for fun. So yeah. There are so many benefits of having that consistency, that reliability. Yeah, so many benefits. Yeah, great experience for those in business. You know, it's so many.
And for me, there's the whole kind of, it's less stressful actually. If I know that those certain bits, I don't have to waste energy thinking about them, because I know how we do that stuff.
Yes, so and your team know how you do it, so you can trust your team. You know, you congratulated your team at the start of the show, and absolutely right. You know, my experience of them as well. They've just got on and done things, and when you can trust people to just get on and do things, and you don't have to worry, you just rock up as the star. Then it's, you know, it's brilliant.
Yeah. Brilliant. And thank you for recognizing them, because they do work so hard behind the scenes to make things seamless. So yeah, look, August has sent your heart. So obviously I've got a question now, which I'm going to pose to the people who are joining us here, either on live or on the replay, wherever you happen to be. And the question is, how can you reduce the chaos so that you can create more consistency, more calm, and dare I say more capacity. You know, I love threes and alliteration, so more capacity in your life. And more importantly, when will you start? Because all, you know, good intentions without concrete actions are actually a waste of breath, quite frankly. So for me, it's about, what are you going to do? When are you going to do it? And what's your why for doing it? So again, I just want to give you a couple of moments to think about that as well, Marianne.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
In terms of the action.
Yeah. I've got mine pretty much.
Yeah. Brilliant. I think it's constant and ongoing work and not a one-time. Yes, I agree with you, August. It's not one time, because we are all work in progress. You know, that's one of my favorite phrases. We are all work in progress. And as Marianne's talked about, you know, with her books, her own thinking, her own thought leadership has, I don't know why I did that, but I did. Her own thought leadership has kind of moved on, has developed, because we are all developing. We are responding to the way the world of work is changing. Marianne shared with us about how some of the younger generation are making very different choices. They're choosing to go on time and not do the whole, I'll sell my soul for a, you know, for a retirement that I might never reach, because let's face it, they're potentially in that kind of position, aren't they?
Yeah.
So I know the audience will be keen to know where they can find out more about you and your work, Marianne, and about your books. So please share how they can get to you.
Well, anybody that wants to get to me, just type in mariannepage.com and my website has pretty much everything on there that you would ever want. And I'm also on YouTube for anybody that wants to, you know, hear more of what I have to say about this sort of stuff, or wants help and advice. So I'd definitely go there. I did actually bring my babies with me. Thanks to Sebastian for telling me to go and get them. Process to Profit was number 1. Simple, Logic, or Repeatable was number 2. And then there's Mission to Manage and Little Baby Brother, 6 Minute Smarts, which is a consolidated version of, I'm not sure that these are coming up front the right way round, but
no, they are. Yeah.
Mastering People Management, 6 Minute Smarts. It's obviously a much smaller little book, but it's the little brother of Mission to Manage. So
nice.
And sorry, go on.
Watch out for the next one. Go on. What's your next one?
Watch out for sticky systems coming to a. Well, actually, I was going to say a Waterstones near you, but 1, not everybody's got Waterstones, and 2, I don't think we have anymore, have we?
Yes, we have, because my book's in Waterstones at the moment.
Hey! Fantastic.
We've still got. Yeah, thank you. And I was aware of Mission to Manage, but not its baby brother. So I'm going to have to look out for that.
Relatively new.
Is it?
Yeah, we're up for an award. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, fantastic. In the upcoming book awards.
Yes. Yeah, the business.
Fantastic. Well, fingers crossed on that.
Brilliant. Thank you.
So thank you very much for being my guest. Obviously, Marianne and I have riffed around kind of how we drag ourselves out from the depths of chaos into something that resembles consistency. And we know we don't have to do it through the corporate bollocks route. We can do it through actually, what's the best way to do this? What's our way of doing this? And let's kind of keep it simple, logical, repeatable. Yes.
My work here is done.
Indeed. So thank you very much for joining us. It is all about the choices we make. As I've already said, we are all work in progress. So it isn't something that we do as a one-off. It is something that we keep coming back to and keep looking at and keep refining. So enjoy that journey of change and that journey of development that we all undertake. But unless there are any final comments or questions, what I'm going to do is wish you all a very good evening. Marianne, thank you so much for joining me.
My absolute pleasure. I've loved every minute of it. Thank you.
Brilliant. And we'll see everyone again in May when we've got another very exciting guest joining us. So thank you, everyone, and look forward to seeing everyone soon.